Hey everyone, today I want to talk about a topic that is getting everybody really fired up at the moment, and honestly, it's one that we need to approach with openness and respect. Autism, environmental factors, and why asking questions doesn't equate to curing or erasing autism. Now let's just start here. Being autistic isn't an issue. What is an issue is that there may be potential causes of autism, especially when it comes to the more disabling form like the level 3 autism, which we don't tend to say anymore, but level 3 autism, which can deeply affect somebody's ability to function independently. Now, the research is happening today, and it's not about curing autism. It's about figuring out what might increase risks, especially from an environmental standpoint. Now, we already know that autism has a genetic basis, that's very clear, but we're also seeing more studies that point to environmental influences like air pollution, heavy metals, gut microbiome changes, pesticides, medications taken in pregnancy, things like this. Now, here's what gets interesting and tricky. There are epigenetic factors that might play a role in autism. That means that there are external things that change how genes are expressed without altering DNA itself. And this can look like inheritance when it's not. I'll give you an example. You might say something like, fat parents have fat kids because of genetics. But sometimes it's actually because the whole family shares a similar diet and similar habits. Same with autism. Some patterns that we see might just be environmental and shared across the family. So the big question becomes, if there is a sporadic autistic diagnosis within a family that has no history, what has caused that? Now, if research points to a specific exposure like glyphosate or phthalates, wouldn't we want to know about that? Of course we would. Now, this is often where the conversation tends to get going, and it's emotionally loaded. A lot of people who push back hard on this kind of discussion tend to be level 1 Asperger's or ASD. And there's no judgment here, but we have to acknowledge that Asperger's and level 1 autism doesn't usually need the same intervention that somebody who suffers from level 3 autism. Level 3 autism is profoundly disabling. Now, if environmental exposures are increasing the chances of that happening, it is our job to find out why. This isn't about exclusion, it's not about blame, and it's not about trying to erase anyone. It's about knowledge, because knowledge is power. And if we are exposing children unknowingly to chemicals, for instance, that increase the risk of severe autism, should we not look at that? Should we not research that? Now, there's this whole other layer. Symptoms that look like autism or ADHD might not actually be those things. For instance, there are certain dyes in foods that have been shown to cause ADHD-like behavior in some children. But if the child stops eating that dye, their symptoms disappear. That's not ADHD, it's a chemical reaction. The same concept applies to gut health and microbiome changes. There are studies that show that changes in gut bacteria could be linked to emotional and sensory behaviors in autism. So if a child has symptoms that could be related to diet, medications, or to environmental toxins, it's worth investigating that before we slap on a lifelong label of autism. Now, to wrap this up, no one is trying to wipe out autistic people. That's a groupthink, and it's fear-mongering. What we are trying to do as scientists is to make the world a healthier, better place for everybody. And that means looking at our air quality, our food systems, our medical practices, and our chemical exposure. If something like glyphosate or phthalates is increasing the risk of severe autism in kids who are already genetically predisposed to it, we need to know and we need to act. So let's keep asking questions. Let's support research, not shut it down. Let's talk openly without judgment and pursue answers for the people who need them most. This isn't about blame. It's about responsibility. Thank you so much for watching, and if this resonated with you, please drop a comment. a comment below, share it, or just sit with it for a while. This is the first step is always having a conversation. And I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. I'll speak to you soon time.